I'm so delighted today to be here with Jolyon Bambridge, who is a true Brit. What an amazing individual. I couldn't pass up the opportunity to do a quick zigzag interview with you. Indeed, we're sitting here in Andrew Locke's studio, Help My Business Sucks, and discovered that Andrew's father-in-law was indeed the creator and designed the R2-D2 that was in the latest trilogy set of Star Wars. Brilliant! What a wonderful, amazing thing to be able to claim. And I know earlier in our conversations you'd mentioned how much you had enjoyed that experience. But what I really wanted to talk to is how you ended up getting to that. In the perspective of Zigzag, how in the world do you end up designing and building and then operating R2-D2?
Well, I started off as a photographer working in Windsor on for a publishing company. And I always wanted to build models or do something mechanical. And Pinewood Studios is not far from where I was working in Windsor. And I used to go into the dark room and switch the red light on so nobody could come in, nobody could disturb me, and I'd build radio control model planes. And then I heard through a friend of mine that there was an opportunity on a film because they wanted aero modelers for a particular film, which turned out to be a stupendous flop. So Zig number one, photography. Yeah. Building model airplanes. Yeah. Zag number two. Yeah. So you went to the studio and applied for a position designing and building aero models. That's right. So I did that, but before that, in an attempt to get into the film industry, I knew somebody who flew the radio control model helicopters in the early James Bond films. And I really wanted to get on the right side of him. So he wanted a big model built, and I built it for him, and I thought, well, this is the way. This is how I will get into the film industry. Get friendly with him. And it made no difference at all. Mm-hmm. So that particular
So going directly for the goal didn't work.
Didn't work.
You had to go via
another route.
Yeah, you went via a photography studio to then airplane modeling designs. Yeah. And then I'll let you carry it from there.
Yeah, so then I specialised in doing model planes, which then ultimately turned into model helicopters, and I ended up flying them in 3 of the James Bond films.
Brilliant.
So I then became known as a specialist in radio control, and I'd done some animatronics as well in other films. So I then went from that point to somebody recommending me to do R2-D2, which was done nearby in another studio near London, and ended up doing R2-D2.
Brilliant. What an amazing life experience. Now, earlier you told me a story of how R2-D2 kept tripping as you brought R2-D2 up to you said the Queen. Would you mind sharing that story?
Yes. Unfortunately, it ended up on the making of video, or no, DVD nowadays. We had a particular shot where all the crew ended up, or all the cast, the Queen and various other individuals and Jar Jar Binks, and they all ended up standing in front of an imaginary person who was then going to be computer generated, and I had to bring up R2-D2 beside them. So I was following them basically because I couldn't go as fast. So we were going through this woodland, and there's lots of trees and tree roots that were sticking out of the ground. And I brought R2 up to a stop beside Natalie Portman, as Queen Amidala, I think. And I stopped, and the rear wheel sat just on a tree root which was sticking out. And very slowly R2 tipped over and his head rolled off. The Queen was doing this wonderful speech and everybody burst out laughing. So we had to do a retake.
Except for Steven Spielberg.
Or George Lucas.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Maybe we better cut that. There you go.
And so we then did it again, did the next shot, and I ended up exactly on the same tree root, stopping and falling over. Oh. The crew laughed. I don't think Mr. Lucas was terribly impressed, so we then did another take. But unfortunately, everything that George Lucas does is filmed.
Yeah.
And they were filming me for the making of story of the film, and that got onto the DVD.
Well, that's brilliant. So you would conclude that zigzagging was indeed a true principle in your life, and you were able to get to your goals and do what you really felt that you were put on this world to do by zigging and zagging.
That's right. The route I thought was the best route turned out to be completely different.
Brilliant.
The route I got there was zigging and zagging.
Well, I so appreciate you sharing that story. Do you have any final words of counsel that you would give our followers?
I think probably the same as other people who've read your book have said is you never take a straight line to where you want to go. You always have to. There's obstacles, so you've got to go around them. But just keep in view what your goal is. And if you have to detour around to get there,
brilliant.
Detour.
Brilliant. I thank you so much for spending a few moments with me. What a pleasure it's been to interview a true English gentleman, and
in shorts.
In shorts, that nonetheless an English gentleman. The reality is the road to success never is a straight line, and zigging and zagging is a natural law, and I encourage you to go forward, to prosper, and to use zigzag principle to reach your goals and your destiny.